You know, women are special. Women are so special. We thank God, honestly. I want to very quickly open the chat to a few questions.
The one thing I would say as a woman, or just as a minister of God in general, is to have a consistent time and place that you know this time belongs to God. Because it's very easy to become burnout. It's very easy to just constantly do the work, and forget the Lord of the work. And so it's so important that in your day-to-day schedule, I say that from this time to this time belongs to God. And I know that it's like, if you know you're going to shower that day, you know every single day you're going to shower. The same way in your day, every single day, this time specifically belongs to God. And I'm turning off my phone. I'm turning off everything else. No one's going to contact me in that time. In that time, I'm going to pray. I'm going to spend time with God. And then you're filled up to be able to go and pour out again. But then if you don't do that, then you will so easily just continue with the work, and you don't have the peace that you get from having time with the Lord of the work. And it's so easy to just think, okay, do you know what? I'll read my Bible later. I'll pray later. I will do this later. But it's like, that's the first thing, and then pour out in that instance is what I'd say. So having that time every single day allows you to be able to be consistent. And then when you're pouring out, it's not as difficult, it's not as hard, because you know you're filled up, you're ready. And it's like, these people stress me again, I'm going back to my God, and God will calm me down again. And always praying for, one of the most frustrating things as someone in ministry is if the people you're leading, or the people you're trying to work with, the sheep that God has given you, is if they're not in line with the vision that you have. So one of the most important prayer points is that, God, help me and help them align with the vision that you have for what you want to do. And then you see like God move in a different dimension, but relying that, do you know what, this is none of me, but it's all of God. And I'm pouring out, I'm just a vessel. He's just passing through me. He's coming, he's using me, I'm taking out. I take it, he gives it to me, I pass it out. So I don't hold on to anything. It's all just to pass out. It's just to pass out. And if like you're someone that you counsel people, you help people, it's not to carry that burden yourself, but to take that burden and you're placing it at the throne of God, because you're not sufficient enough to carry it yourself. And that's the reality. You're flesh, you're human. So it's taking it and then placing it back at the throne of God. And then God is coming again. He's giving you, you're pouring out. He's giving you, you're just a vessel, just to push through. That's all you are. You're not the one that's going to save. You're not the one that's going to uproot. You're not the one. You're just a vessel. God's just passing through you. And it's so important to just keep that mindset. Otherwise, you become overwhelmed and you'll just be thinking like, people are mad, everyone's mad, and this is just mad. So just knowing you're a vessel, but having that time with God as well is the most important. And I saw all the speakers have said, like, I was just so happy to see every single speaker, literally, we all said, the first place before building, before developing, is drawing from God and being with God. So yeah, that's what I'd say.
Certainly. So the long-term goal, so that I brought that up when I was talking about Abigail and her having her eye on the big picture, and David had forgotten the big picture because he let his emotion overtake him. So how do you have insight by that? What I'm not sure what you mean. So it's about knowing what your vision is, what it is you want to achieve, and that's the insight you need to have, is that vision, that end game that you're aiming for in life. And then the other insight, that, or the knowledge you want to then get, is how do you get there? And then once you know that as well, it helps you to make decisions in terms of every area of your life. Helps you make decisions and choices in terms of how you spend your time, the kind of people you have in your life. So everything in your life, in order to get yourself to that end game, you have to surround yourself with everything that will help you to get there, as opposed to distract you, make you detour, or make you abandon. So if you are, Sister Ola was talking about, the people, the environment. She kept mentioning that environment. if environment is so critical, and it's under, sometimes we forget about that, or we think it's trivial, it mightn't matter so much. But you know, there are research studies, empirical research studies that show, when I read one recently for I can't remember what the purpose was, but I had a kind of a glaze over it. I think it might have been another presentation actually, about the influence of university students, okay, so their peers. And the study did show, in fact, that students who excelled and did well academically tended to have friends who were of the same mind of achieving. So if, and it sounds simple, but there's research that actually proves it, yeah? So if you know you have to graduate with your degree, but if you are having lots of friends at university who might be also enrolled in a degree course, but actually they are partying all the time, or they'd rather hang out all the time, or when it's time to study and buckle down for exams, they're like, no, come, let's go do this instead. Then that peer pressure is enough to pull you away from your purpose, and you will not achieve the end goal, which is your degree. Or you get so angry over something that's been done, like David did, and you head for that lecturer who gave you some feedback that you felt wasn't fair, and you explode. You might not have wanted to kill him like David wanted to kill Label, but you go and you mouth off to that lecturer, and actually you then ruin that module because you took your eye off the end game. The beauty of it, and again, coming back to my book, Two Great Exploits, I talk about that vision having the power to help you control your behavior in the present.
Yes.
If you don't have vision, the Bible does say, that's why it says, if you don't have vision, you perish. Because actually, if you have vision and you are walking in purpose aligned to that vision, you are less likely to have people in your life that will distract you, less likely to be distracted. Yeah? So I don't know if that's what you mean by insight, but to me, it's about the knowledge of how to get to that vision, the knowledge of the types of people you should be including in your life or allowing in your life. Because actually, if you have a friend who is really focused as well and want to do well and graduate, even they will be saying, don't bother me now, I'm studying. And then that gives you the pressure then on you is to study as well. If you got a friend who's like, yeah, let's hang out, then it's easy to then put the books down and hang out.
Yeah.
And one quick point as well, I loved what Ola said when she talked about validation. It's so important. You see, the validation must come from God. And even I'm still in that process of learning. I've gotten better on that, but I've realized even just recently I had a conversation with my close friend about the family and how I didn't use the word validation, but actually that's what it is. It's still wanting that validation from family. That breaks my heart when I feel like I don't get it, right? So you have to now really go back to God, and because wherever you seek your validation controls you.
Yes.
Yeah.
You do what you do to win that validation. So if your validation is coming from God, then you're going to do what pleases him, as opposed to you want mom's validation or whoever's validation or boyfriend's validation. You want boyfriend's validation, boyfriend's going to take you to bed. Yeah. That is how he controls you, is by you please him if you sleep with him.
That's right.
You want that validation. You want him to propose to you, so you're gonna compromise and do whatever it is it takes for him to validate you as his possible wife. But actually, you shoot yourself in the foot, because then he definitely is not gonna make you his wife. So your validation, that really hit me, and I think it's because of that personal issue I am wrestling with family. But your validation needs to come from God. He already validates you.
Yes.
By faith, you receive that validation.
Amen.
And you walk in that strength and confidence. That's where the confidence, all the things that sister was talking about, flows from. I can do all things through Christ. That's a validation. He's telling you I am
Yes.
validating you. You can do all things through me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Amen.
There's two sides to that coin.
Right.
So there are things that, as Sister Ola said, you could probably compromise, find a compromise and a way forward. But then I also said, like, and even in her talk, we're talking about there are some things you cannot compromise or shouldn't compromise on.
Mhm.
And sometimes there is a price to pay for standing in that place. Okay. At the end of the day, Jesus didn't compromise with any of the Pharisees. That is why they decided he has to die. So there is a
Yeah.
place for that. And that's what when he says, take up your cross and follow me, it's about recognizing that when you stand uncompromisingly in your faith or on a moral issue, you're going to get a backlash.
Yes.
So you have to stand in your integrity. And so I see Vashti as a woman who, and I suppose I base that on some films. Like, I don't know if you've seen the film Alexander the Great, made many years ago with Colin Farrell as Alexander. Back in that time, the way it wasn't a dignified thing to bring her out, to parade her. This was
Like a
it
prostitute.
would be they had a scene and there was a big drunken festival of all these men gaping, and so him inviting her out to parade herself around was as a kind of a sexualized thing. Yes, he probably wouldn't have allowed them to touch her or his wife or whatever it is, but it was actually a degradation. So the thing is, she could have chosen to do it for diplomatic sake, but if she in her heart felt the conviction that actually this isn't sitting well with me, and she didn't have time to have a discussion because she was already in the party when he called her.
Right.
So it took courage for her to say, I'm not coming there, because actually this was a man who could have ordered her death.
Yes.
For that reason. So we don't know what became of her. She just exited the narrative. We don't know what became of her. But there are times, and for some reason, I think of Martin Luther King. Yeah, he died because he wasn't compromising on civil rights. He was shot. So there are times. So when you say her behavior, I don't know, that sounds like a negative framing of it. I don't see her as a rebellious woman. And anybody, any seniors in the audience who feel differently, please share your view. But personally, I don't see Vashti as a rebellious, difficult woman.
For what she
I
believed
see
in.
her as a woman who was protecting her dignity and paid the price. And there's so many people out there, as I mentioned, the Me Too movement in the United States, those are extreme examples. I'm not saying I'm a feminist or anything like that, but I feel that there are legitimate concerns around sexual harassment and the sexualization of women and all that stuff, the objectification of women as objects, that I think that's why I say she's a woman of ahead of her time, because she was a woman who was thinking 21st century when she was actually in antiquity, where there was the misogyny and the disparity and equality around gender and things like that.
I want to say that number one, so kudos for recognizing that the boundary was crossed and that a trust was breached. The first part of that is acknowledging what part you played in it, for that boundary violation to have occurred, and to go before God, and repent in it. That's one. The other part of it, having done that, you need to give yourself, and I'm speaking from my heart, okay? You would need to give yourself time to heal from whatever hurt has been implanted in your soul as a result of that boundary violation. Because obviously you're going to have to learn how to rebuild trust either in yourself, trusting your own decisions again, or either generally in male friendships, so to speak. So allow yourself. So my suggestion would be give yourself time and pray through it and give your soul, and I keep saying your soul, give your soul time to heal from that wound that was inflicted upon you. And also ask the Holy Spirit for his help to help you to heal from that wound. Now going forward, I don't know, people change, but I guess the question becomes, can you trust that relationship not to boundary violate again? You can't. So for me, like the Shark Tank would say, I'm out. But however, my suggestion would be, I don't know, evaluate the friendship based on what is the value that this relationship is adding to me. You know, is it adding anything to you? You know, I guess I say that because I'm at an age now where my time, if I invest time in a relationship now, and I'm not just talking men, I'm talking about females too. My time is so precious that if I invest my time in developing a relationship with somebody, it's something that it has to mean something. It has to be that one knows that there's a type of value that is going to be adding to me, is going to be adding to them by me being in their life. Do you understand? So you have to make up your mind in terms of, do you still want to be friends with this person? But my advice would be, for now, break that connection. However, as a child of God, you must also, even though you've broken that connection, you must also maintain a level of cordiality. You're not going in to keep malice. You're not going in to be nasty. You're not being, because then you're going to need deliverance of a whole different level. So just say, I love you with the love of God. I appreciate the friendship, but for my own peace of mind and for my safety, I do not feel that I can trust you to be in my immediate space. So let's just be friends. And when we need to talk, we'll face app, WhatsApp, every app that's out there. But I would not be allowing that person in my personal space. That's just me.
I absolutely agree. I am sympathetic and empathetic to the fact that, you know, when you're younger, in your early 20s or whatever, it's just a whole completely different
Mm-hmm.
story to when you're like me in your 50s and have lived life and learned reason
Learned
and
life
learned wisdom,
lessons.
right? So I think, there's some preventative things that Sister Ola shared. You should really try to avoid being alone um, indoors with the opposite sex. I feel, we used to have this rule in our church: you shouldn't be touching anybody below the shoulder, and you shouldn't be touching anything that you don't have.
Okay.
Whatever you don't have, you shouldn't be touching on somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And you shouldn't be touching, just, some simple boundaries that you can put in place and enforce, so you don't let people invade your personal space. You shouldn't be alone in the house with the opposite sex if you think that that is going to be a challenge. You shouldn't put yourself in that position. You should avoid those kinds of things so that it never gets to the point where it starts happening and then you don't have the
Right.
strength to stop it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Um, and to be honest with you, if he touches you first, to me, it's an issue of respect as well.
For sure.
And I find myself in my ripe old age having no tolerance for that. Yeah, none, not at all. I was in Trinidad year before last, and this guy I was in the mall, I parked my car as I'm walking. He comes over and he just throws his arms around me. I'd met him twice through a friend. And straight away, I backed off and I said, why do you think you have the right to put your hands on me?
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed that with Trinidadian men. It's all they call you darling and honey, and they'll make cattle calls to the women, and They think they could come and hug you and touch you. And I said, I don't like that. I don't know you. What gives you the right to put your hands on me? So I really challenged him in that firm but respectful way. I said, yeah, listen, I don't know about the other women, but I find that really disrespectful. I'm here to conduct my business, not to be grabbed into an embrace with somebody I hardly know. So my thing is, you know, it's an issue about respect as well. And I think that if you're with a Christian guy who's a friend, for him to then decide to put his hands on you in a way that makes you uncomfortable is an issue that he needs to deal with.
Right.
And you need to put the boundary in place very firmly. And don't take on the guilt, because it is him that made the mistake, not you. Yeah? But you just and then how you conduct yourself is the other thing. So you have to be able, as a young woman, to grow into that confidence in your body language and how you conduct yourself. And again, that is another preventive thing, a signal to the men in your environment that you are not to be trifled with in that way.